Hello everyone! In this lesson, we will connect our My Notes front end with the WordPress REST API as the back end. And the JavaScript code that we write will be the glue that holds the two together. Let me show you what I mean. So from the home page, while you are logged in as your admin account, let's click on to the My Notes page. Here we see the two note posts that we created in the previous lesson from the back end of WordPress. And now our goal in this lesson is to be able to make edits to these posts, as well as completely delete them right from the front end of our website, directly from this page and UI that we've got right here. Why don't we begin with the delete action? Now at first, let's not even worry about making this actually delete a post. And instead, let's just begin by writing JavaScript that responds to this click event. So for example, when you click this delete button, maybe we just output a test alert message that says, you clicked delete. Okay, then once we've got that up and running, we can focus on actually communicating with WordPress. So right now, let's go write a bit of JavaScript that responds to this delete click event. Over in your text editor, within our theme folder, let's look within the JS or JavaScript folder. And then within the modules folder, let's create a brand new file to stay organized. The name of the file does not matter, but I'm going to name it mynotes.js. And I'm going to code things from an object-oriented perspective, which is just personal preference. It doesn't have anything to do with WordPress. But I encourage you to follow along with me. So first, let's create a new class. The name doesn't matter, but I'm going to name it My Notes. Okay, and within the class, I always like to have three sections. The first is the constructor function. And then right below that, I like to have an events method. And then right below that is where I like to create any of my own custom methods. Alright, and because I want to be able to import this module within my main scripts file, down at the very bottom of this file, let's say export default and then the name of our class. So My Notes. Okay, and before we save this file and then go import it within our main scripts file, why don't we include a little test message up in the constructor? Just to make sure that everything's working okay, let's alert out a test message that says, hello from mynotes.js. Okay, let's go ahead and save this. And now we want to be sure to import it within our main JavaScript file. So within our JS folder, we've got a file named scripts.js. Let's jump into that. Here's the area where we import all of our individual modules. So let's add a new line here and say import, and we can make up a name. Let's say My Notes from, and then you just point towards that new file that we just created. So quotes, period slash to look within the current folder, and then let's look within the modules subfolder, and then we named the file My Notes. Okay, and now that we've imported that class and file, we can use it to create a new object down here. So on a new line, let's just create a variable, lowercase my notes, just so it's different from the class name. And we can just set it to equal a new instance of my notes. So make sure that this matches whatever name you used here. Okay, now if I save this file, if I go back to the front end of my website and refresh, cool, we can see that test message, hello from mynotes.js, which means our new module is working correctly. So now let's just go ahead and actually respond to the click event for this delete button. So back in our text editor, within our My Notes JavaScript module, let's delete the test alert message within the constructor. And then within our events method, let's tell the web browser that we want to be on the lookout for that delete button getting clicked on. I want to use jQuery to select that element, but if I'm going to use jQuery within this file, I need to be sure to include or import jQuery up at the very top here. So to do that, we can just say import and then we get to make up our own name for jQuery. Let's just say $, import that from quotes jQuery. And thanks to the magic of NPM and Webpack and our automation setup, this will give us what we need. Okay, now back to the task at hand. Within our events method, let's use jQuery to select any element that has a class of delete note, and then let's say on, and then we just give the on method 2 arguments. So the first is the type of event that we want to be on the lookout for, which in this case is the click event. And then the second argument is just a function that we want to run in response. Now we could include an anonymous inline function here, but just to stay organized, why don't we do this instead? Down here, why don't we create a brand new method? We could name it whatever we want, but I'm going to call it delete note. Okay, and then back up on this line, for the second argument, let's just point towards this function or this method. So we can just say this to look within the current object or class, and then type out that name, delete note. Okay, and just as a test, so we can make sure that this method is actually running, down here, why don't we alert a test message that says, you clicked delete. Okay, now before I save this and test it out in the browser, I want to be sure to call my events method up in the constructor. So that way this code actually gets executed as soon as the page loads. So right up in the constructor, just say this.events, include parentheses to actually execute it. Okay, now if I save this and click on the delete button, cool, we get an alert that says you clicked delete. And I can try the button down here, and it does the same thing. Excellent. So now we can finally get to the entire point of this lesson, which is how can we communicate with WordPress from the front end? When we click this button, how can we tell WordPress to delete a specific post? Well, the answer has to do with the REST API. And that's exactly what we're going to learn more about in part 2 of this lesson. Let's keep things rolling, and I will see you then.